Good evening, everybody. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, welcome. Thank you so much for being here and investing your time to learn about a little bit more about who we are at IDRA. We see some new faces and also see some old friends, so it's great to be here together today. Thank you so much, Melissa, Maribel. Thank you so much, Carla, for your stewardship. We're so excited as we gather here to dedicate officially our 50th anniversary archives. We're proud to partner with UT Libraries, with UT Law School's Justice Center, William Wayne Justice Center, with the LBJ School of Public Policy, the College of Education, the Center for Mexican American Studies, LLILAS, the Latino Research Institute, and the Malls Department. So we're proud to partner with them, and of course to celebrate the bold legacy of our founder, Dr. Jose Angel Cardenas. I know there's going to be an opportunity later to check out the rare books and manuscripts reading room where you see some of his amazing books and some of the incredible archives that have already been kept for up through 1995. I'm proud to serve as the CEO and president of IDRA. We are a national organization, but we were founded close by in San Antonio. And we are dedicated to equitable educational opportunities for all students. 50 years ago, a visionary educator, Dr. Jose Cardenas, and an advocate, he had the audacity to insist that every single young person have a right to a quality education. He was the first Latino school superintendent in San Antonio, and he was a superintendent of one of the poorest school districts in the nation. Still is Edgewood ISD. It was the late 60s, and there was a huge bubbling and movement with the civil rights movement, including the Chicano civil rights movement. And in the late 60s, the students, they were demanding better education, and they led student walkouts. This was on the heels, again, of a larger movement, but they could feel what was happening in their own classrooms. They knew that they had subpar textbooks. They were learning sometimes in classes without air conditioning. Their typewriters were cardboard pieces of paper with keyboards drawn on them, and that was how they practiced typing. And so they demanded better, along with their families and educators like Dr. Cardenas. In the infamous Rodriguez versus San Antonio ISD case, the US Supreme Court ruled that education is not a fundamental right. That decision remains wrong today, and Dr. Cardenas rejected that decision, and that is what sparked him and many others to start IDRA and to address those inequities. He thought, well, if we do some research and educate folks on what's happening, things will change. And so IDRA for the last 5 decades has really led the fight here in Texas, alongside organizations like MALDEF, the Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund, to successfully challenge the inequities of the Texas school finance system. We helped write legislation to significantly reduce those funding inequities, and Jose Cardenas testified in over 70 court cases, and in fact, I can't think of many education civil rights cases that came out of Texas that did not involve IDRA. And so I encourage you to continue to learn more, but let me just talk about a few of some of the landmarks. We helped write the very first bilingual education law in the state of Texas, which is still one of the stronger ones in the nation. We also provided critical expert witness testimony in the case by MALDEF that went all the way to the US Supreme Court, called Plyler v. Doe, which, if you haven't heard of it, it ensures that all students, regardless of immigration status, have the right to a free public education. And just last year, we celebrated the 40th anniversary of Plyler v. Doe. But even with that case, right, the education of our students, and of immigrant students, once they graduate from high school, is still at risk, right? And I'm proud to say that our fierce legal team our newer legal team, led by Paige Juggins-Clay, we simply refuse to let that happen. And this year, IDRA actually led a coalition of business, student, and higher education leaders to successfully defeat an attempt to undermine the Texas DREAM Act in the Fifth Circuit, no less. And so we were so proud of that work. "50 years later, we remain really driven by the vision of Dr. Cárdenas. We believe deeply that all students, that every single young person has the right to a high quality education and to be able to access and succeed in college, and at the same time not have to leave their gender identity, their cultural identity, their linguistic or racial identity at home in order to succeed. And that we believe that to our core. We also believe in the power of bilingualism, not just because it's good for our economy, but because it is part of who we are. We want to make sure that it's accessible not just for middle-class students, but that it is a civil right for all students who are learning English. And so that's why we, across the U.S. South, train over 3,000 teachers every year that are teachers of bilingual students. And you'll hear more about some of our work from one of our speakers on some of the more recent work we've done in the Texas legislature to strengthen bilingual education in Texas. We envision a reality where immigrant students are celebrated, again, not just because what they can bring to our economy, but because what they mean to our families. And so whether it's in the Fifth Circuit or in the Texas legislature, we're never going to stop fighting to protect the Texas DREAM Act and protect the rights of immigrant families. We know that just across the way in the Texas Capitol, there's a very, very harmful bill making its way through. And we have to continue to fight against those types of laws. We also envision a reality where students are not gaslit, whether that be here at UT or in spaces of higher education or K-12 classrooms, because there are classroom censorship policies that wish to censor discussions about race, about gender and sexuality. These are things that it's not just history, it's current events, and students, when they see things happening around them, they feel gaslit by saying you can't talk about what they see happening in their own realities and neighborhoods. And so that's why we lead coalitions here in Texas and also in Georgia. We lead a coalition as well that's regional, called the Southern Education Equity Network, or SEAN. And in addition, right, we're not just fighting back against these terrible policies, but putting forward a vision where our curriculum is culturally sustaining. And so we have a school resource hub for teachers to help navigate some of these harmful laws and their chilling effects that come with really critical lesson plans for teachers. We also are, again, not afraid to use the law to protect students. And when there are anti-LGBTQ policies that are in public schools, we have filed federal civil rights complaints against those districts. We believe that all students should feel safe and welcomed in their schools, both in terms of bringing their authentic selves and also, protecting against harmful exclusionary school discipline policies that disproportionately affect Black students. And that's something that, we work in Congress, and IDRA has, led by our policy team and Morgan Craven, who leads our federal policy work. Morgan Craven has been, who is here somewhere in the back, right when she put something in her mouth, sorry. She has been, invited multiple times to testify about how we can best obstruct the school to prison pipeline. And then we, lastly envision a reality where students can show up to school free from racial bullying. That is not the reality today, and unfortunately, that's why our legal team engages in what we call movement lawyering, and recently joined with courageous Black students and families to hold community forums, to co-write legislation that would prohibit and put some teeth right into legislation that currently exists, to ensure that schools actually have to do something when they see this terrible racial bullying happening in their schools. And again, we're proud to say that when we need to use the law as a tool, we file federal complaints, and fortunately the Office of Civil Rights right now is actively investigating complaints in Lubbock, and Cooper, and Slayton ISDs. Thank you for patience and your leadership there. 50 years later, we also remain committed to building people power. And that's part of bringing diverse groups of people together, multi-sector business leaders with civil rights leaders, with students and faculty. It's also bridging communities, bridging states. So we lead statewide policy coalitions in Georgia and Texas, and really see what the trends are in the US South and connect that work. And we believe that if we equip students and families with actionable research, and actually equip students and families to conduct their own research, that strengthens our communities and this work, because we know it's for the long haul. We've definitely seen that we're in a critical moment in public education where so much is at risk. Y'all have heard me say, some of you, I like to call it the Texas three-step, where a lot of lawmakers are defunding, demonizing, and then privatizing public schools. And that is happening across the country, but Texas, of course, it's happening right here across the street. And we're living in a time where so much of the progress that we have made over the last 50 years, it's at risk. We know it's not theoretical. The Supreme Court has overturned 45 and 50 years of Supreme Court precedent. And we see it here on college campuses, right? Because there are well-funded and well-coordinated efforts to undermine diversity, to undermine public schools. So we have a lot together as a community to protect. And I, again, appreciate all of you coming here today to learn about what we do and to commit together, and for all of, I know many of you are advocates, and for your work to protect civil rights and to fight for education justice. And so I've mentioned a couple of our staff members, but I'm really so privileged to work with the most brilliant and talented team, that on this side of the Mississippi, no, I'm just kidding, but seriously, across the country, I don't know many organizations that bring together, coaching principals and training teachers with strong policy advocacy and research. And I just want all of you to stand that are part of the IDRA team. Hector Bojorquez, I'm looking at you, the Director of Educational Practice and Operations. Dr. Isabella, who leads, who is our expert in emerging bilingual education. Of course, Dr. Chloe Sykes, who leads our Texas policy group, and is also a professor here at UC. Jocelyn Rivera, who has helped bring us here together, and has been a long-time fierce advocate at IDRA. And I just want to give special thanks to our Director of Communication, Christy Goodman, and our Communication Assistant, Sylvia Valencia, because they're the reason that we're here today. Am I missing this here? Thomas Marshall, who is you're going to hear from another one of our education policy fellows, but Thomas Marshall was in our initial cohort of IDRA education policy fellows, and he is now our policy communications strategist and is doing amazing work. So just really proud of the IDRA team. Rebecca Skelton is one of our interns and helps Dr. Sykes. So I know you got a chance to talk to them, but I encourage, continue to eat and grab food and talk with them.